Radio Cayman,
the voice,
the heart, the soul of the Cayman Islands.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. MedLab in Smith Road Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution. Call 949-7331. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays.
You see how hard it's raining?
Yeah, and I don't have time to fight traffic and get my lunch from Subway. I have so much work to do.
Why don't you order Subway by using the Let's Eat or Bento app? Save time, stay dry, and get your sandwich fast.
I never thought of that. Great idea. I'm going to order now.
Order me a veggie pizza while you're at it.
And a cookie platter for the office.
Too busy at work or home? Is the rainy weather stopping you from dining out? Order your favorite Subway sandwich, wrap, or pizza through the Let's Eat or Bento app with fast and reliable delivery. Subway, eat fresh.
Oh, I think they're doing a great job. A lot of them are.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Welcome back to Susan. Everybody say, welcome, Susan. All right. I think it's Wednesday, but if it isn't, you just call and let me know because we're going to have some open line to start things off. And 1:30, we get a chance to share with you about the Farmers Assistance Project following Tropical Storm Grace. And then a very special treat for Mr. Loxley at 2 o'clock. But why not some open line between now and then? Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
And thank you for joining us. 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. And can you imagine the WhatsApp? 925-3261. Well, maybe you start to see the great work that is being had in the country. Maybe you're thinking, it's about time. You might say, wait a minute. We have, much to do, so let's get on with it. Well, what's on your mind? Let's open the phone lines and invite you to call to share your thoughts with us. 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. WhatsApp 925-3261. Sometimes, you think, couldn't there be less numbers to get to where you want to go? Well, if there were roads and possible accesses, you would say, good to have multiple points of entry, just in case. Well, kind of the same thing, But what's the point of having something if you don't use it? What do they say? You don't use it, you lose it. Well, maybe sometimes you don't use it because you're preserving it for somebody else. And therein lies the challenge many of us face. Whether we're looking at development, population growth, and the pace at which the economy seems to roll along. Some are saying, well, are we making provision for future generations? Are we making hay while the sun shines? Go back to the fable of the, well, not even the fable, the parable of the two, talents. The parable of the talents, they say. One is given the same amount and buries it and preserves it, and gives it back to the master in the same condition. The other takes it and, probably with a calculated risk, gets a good return. Well, are we building it for future generations so that they can inherit a better space? Are we good stewards of where we are to ensure that at the very least, if we don't make it any better, we're not making it any worse? But there are many of us who, for whatever reason, whether driven by greed or ambition, sometimes we confuse the two, not recognizing there's a significant difference. Or we are full steam ahead, just destroying in the name of development, confusing the two as well. Maybe it's because we don't have that similar sense of connection to the space. It's for us, we have seen it in such a way that we don't always appreciate the cost and the consequence of our actions and our inactions. With that in mind, I want to share with you something that was relayed to us with the intent to hopefully, one, encourage some discourse amongst ourselves as we engage in the banter with a view of putting forward something that is productive and constructive. And secondly, if it's being said by one, maybe it's being said by many. Well, the view from these individuals, all but one of whom have come for many years, made Cayman their homes, and as best as I can tell, and as far as I'm concerned, if you put it that way, these are wonderful people who love this place as much as I do, if not more, if that's possible, who want to see it, continue to be great as they, God's willing, age and hopefully can retire here, not just because they can afford to, but because it's a safe, secure, stable society, and that they want to retire here. And as they were sharing, whether you've been here after Hurricane Ivan or before, that seems to be up until maybe last year, it was, were you here BI or AI? And when those who recognized that before Ivan there was this concern and consideration about certain things, from the concessions that previous governments had granted relative to encouraging and spurring developments, to the social ills that were plaguing society. That National Assessment of Living Conditions report that was commissioned way back when. Perhaps the reassessment of the Economic and Statistics Office way back when, relative to the basket of goods as we compute the CPI. As we look at people today, perhaps following last year, maybe it'll be, before 2020 and after 20 would be our point of reference. We go back to our parents and grandparents who talk about, after the Turtle 2 storm. I see there are pivotal moments in our histories that we don't always appreciate the impact. And this, is where these fine people have weighed in and shared. Are we consciously working together? We probably can see the growing divide from those who are talking about the haves and the have-nots. Well, there are those who considered, the divide is at one time not just how much money you have, not just the color of your skin, your ethnicity, even your religious preferences, even in the Cayman context, which church do you attend? How do you go to church? Are you just doing church because it is another networking opportunity? Are you there to fellowship and to give thanks and to become sort of reconnected and re-energized with the spirit of good intentions and asking for mercy and forgiveness and being appreciative of life and loving a neighbor as you love thyself? But from that point, there are those who share that even other places, people have access to the internet. Some do and have it at a better, not just speed and rate and all the like, but convenience. Now, is that a question of concern in this community? And then what about access to the education system? And then the access to healthcare? And I'll share with you as you weigh in on all the other topics that are before us, that these individuals said, listen, even amongst this group, they had to make a conscious decision that they actively try to avoid two things. One, any discussion about the COVID and the pandemic or the plandemic or the conspiracy or whatever else it is, because just that sort of discussion has led to what otherwise was, in their minds, a very cohesive group that were cordial, with each other, that enjoyed the banter that always emanated from their discussions, that they were finding a bit of division and discord a lot of disharmony amongst themselves because, well, there were different views that in the past only made the conversations that much more enjoyable, much more enlightened, much more engaging. To now, they've become to the point where they will have to avoid the topic. So they consciously decided to avoid the topic, not because they didn't want the disagreement and that division, but because, strangely enough, there are a lot more things happening in the world, a lot more things that are as important or perhaps even more important, but things that were issues before last year and will be issues probably forever unless they're actively dealt with. Surprisingly, issues like the environment, population growth and development in Cayman as well as in the globe, access to affordable housing, education, healthcare, the question of how safe people feel in their communities and in their homes. Now, I wish that the leader member, a senior leader member in the group, could, as we've always asked, exert her significant influence over those that she has access to, and herself, be a much more of a public champion. But sometimes we are unwilling to listen to what is being said because we don't like the people that are saying it. So the funny accent, from the West Bayers, for instance, or the Brackers, or the person from some other jurisdiction, we may ignore it or we may be drawn to it, depending. But if that person is perceived to be associated with this other person or isn't in favor, by this other person, whatever reasons, we ignore the whole conversation simply because of the company the person keeps or the person. Now, why is that? Well, we invite you to call for the next hour. We're going to have some open line. You can talk to us about anything that is important. You might say, listen, there's nothing more important than what is before us. And you might be right. You might say, well, this is important, but here is this other thing. I would like to talk about healthcare. We know that the last administration, whether it is, as some of you have said, speak particularly of one individual who said, well, that was just a political ploy because the government in power that they recognized the importance of it when they said that the whole, healthcare legislation wasn't fit for purpose and didn't work. The paper was printed on and needed to be overhauled. But maybe it was, as many of you have said, finally, we come to a realization. It may take, 20 years for that to happen, but finally, well, let's talk about that because that may be important as we get older. How many of us have looked at our expenses and we see that the money we spend every month, whether it's the mortgage or rent, but that cost of housing, the cost of education, the cost of health care, are those significant costs that if they were somehow shared or somehow changed, would we have more money in our pockets to do other things, not just enjoy life, but maybe it won't be so costly. Maybe the pressures and the stresses that we feel won't be as bad, and maybe that in itself could translate into lower health costs because then the stress hasn't somehow affected our hearts and our health in many negative ways. Well, if you want to talk about those things, we can. If you just want to say, hey, you want to sing a duet? Well, go right ahead. I'll listen and you and Susan can sing. I'll even tap my foot. And if that doesn't work, I just got a wonderful offer on the table. Can I share with Miss Susan, what that offer is? So she says, if we don't get 1,000 calls, we're going to go fishing. No, she didn't say 1,000 calls. She said, let's go fishing. I got the catboat all tied up by the, along the mangroves. So we can go out. She said she got the soldiers. I got a hand line. We can do a thing, All right, I'm going to pause and take a break. 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. There's a comment that came to mind about which national song was the best. I still say it's Cayman. You might say something else. But if you are so encouraged and you want to tell me differently, I'm willing to take you on. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Savannah Pharmacy. Shop local and get a head start on your Christmas shopping. For ladies' handbags, clothes, shoes, fragrance, candles, and cosmetics with the newest Farmhouse Fresh line of skincare. For the gentlemen, clothes, shoes, fragrances, gift sets, and toys and games for the kids. Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they are always just around the corner with everything your family needs. And convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
A friendly holiday reminder. You can WhatsApp your Savannah Pharmacy prescription to 929-5045. That's 929-5045.
Make your house into a home. Welcome to Brand Source Home Gallery, your source for premium products and a premium experience. We'll design and install your dream kitchen with crafted cabinets, complemented with elegant appliances. We'll fill it with quality houseware and cookware. Custom-designed closet and storage solutions organize and beautify any area. And with the finest bedding, you'll get a perfect night's sleep knowing Brand Source Home Gallery has everything you need to make your house a home.
The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan. We're here for you. We are a non-for-profit member-centric plan with a democratically elected volunteer board of trustees representing all sectors of the Cayman Islands economy. Chamber Pension has an all-in expense ratio of 0.72% over 16,000 members, $430 million in assets under management. We were the first multi-employer pension plan approved by the regulator in the late 1990s. And today, we are still strong, secure, and are here for employees and employers alike. If you would like to join or request further information, visit chamberpension.ky. And for information as it happens, follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram. Email admin@pensions.ky or call 745-7630. The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan. We're here for you.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab. Blood test, x-ray, and mammogram, all of that is MedLab. Affordable fees and friendly service, a full professional team. MedLab is always comfortable, MedLab is always clean. For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Call 949-7331 and ask about MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
Your Radio Cayman 6 p.m. news, Monday through Friday, is brought to you by Logic. Your life connected.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. And thank you so much for joining us. Wow, the sound sounds good in my head. I'm not the one that like to hear the sound of his own voice. I would joke and say, I'm not that guy that hosted out the talk show. But I'm not going to say that now, will I? But for those of you who continue to, encourage through prayer, through positive comments, thank you very much. Because then and everybody who has a job to do, it's always good to be given good counsel and direction. Sense of, encouragement goes a long way. And as we recognize that next year, for instance, we're going to be celebrating the uniformed services. So we just putting in place, our military. We see a number of positive movements in our country. Well, let's take ownership and let's help to navigate the path ahead. Let's not let others, as we point fingers and say, oh, it's them. Well, let us be us, doing it together so that it's shaped by us. It reflects us, all of us, the collective we. How many times, as Mr. Kem Jackson would remind us, the we turns out to be just me. Well, let's let it be the we and be all of we. As my good friends in the East say, all of we that. Let's go to the phones. Hey, good afternoon and welcome and thanks for calling.
Good afternoon, Dwayne.
Man, it's been a while, man. I was wondering if they had you somewhere else, man. What happening? You good?
How are you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good, man. If you would let me say this publicly for a second, right? Without talking out of school, hopefully without embarrassing anybody or offending anybody, it's good when you have people in your lives that without any prompting, they just reach out to you and say, how you doing? You good? Everything okay? And you know that they genuinely mean that. And when they can draw alongside you in such a positive way, that makes you feel, almost special. It makes for a beautiful relationship, yeah?
Right, correct.
Yeah. So,
Dwayne,
yes, sir.
Many subjects. You have to be patient with me today.
Okay, well, let me be patient with you as you be patient with me. How about that?
Okay.
All right.
The first thing, recently I read a statement from the head of Tourism Association that he upset about the putting off the reopening. And I think, this government elected by the people of this country know what is the best for the people, and they are working hard to do what is best for the health of the Caymanian people.
Mm-hmm.
In general, it is protection for the Caymanian people and the other citizens who live and make this island as home.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When they take decision, they know that this decision is not just taken like that rationally,
right?
But this decision being discussed among the professional and the people who responsible about the health care of this country, doctors and people who are very professional know what is best for this country.
Mm-hmm.
And for that statement from Mr. or the head of the Tourism Association, he is, by the way, the general manager of Ritz-Carlton.
Right.
That I see interfering in the government decisions, and the other thing, disrespecting the people of this country, that he prefer his hotel make money over the health and the protection of health of the people of this country. Mm-hmm. And I condemn that statement from him, and he needs to know his place. Right. His place is not to discuss decisions made by elected government.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you, because I'm encouraged that we're going to have people who try to respectfully and responsibly share their comments publicly, that maybe get other people to either agree with them or to disagree, but in a very, very positive way. So to your point, when we have, let's say, a professional association, a private sector entity, or some other thing like this come together and share publicly their comments, first off, is this a case of where we have the tail trying to wag the dog? If you follow what I mean.
Yes, I mean here we have, yes, we need the tourism to come back. We need to see the country reopen, yes, but if in that reopening there is a danger in the life of the people. Mm-hmm. We recently see the people who disobey the laws and broke their quarantine, and look the spreading of the virus again. We live all these many months without zero virus, zero sickness, and the people are responding to vaccination respectfully. Every citizen,
right.
Get vaccinated. I myself get the 2-shot vaccination.
Well, that pretty be okay.
We have to obey, to obey the government. We have to listen to the professionals. We have to respect the laws of this country. If you come to live in this country and you are in quarantine for 14 days, stay your 14 days in there.
But
and
can I
come out?
Right. Can I ask you, right? And I certainly will want to be respectful and patient with you, right? Because I think too many times we're dismissive of each other simply because we grow tired. Oh, that's her again. Oh, that's him again. But in this instance, let's ask a couple of things. And I say this partly to kind of get people thinking, right? earlier on in the days, and because we've heard from these same people who are at the helm of the organizations, whether government, whether an NGO or otherwise, who are saying, this is what you have to do. We know that they have made statements that contradicted their earlier statements because, as they say, time has passed now when new information and evidence and stuff come to light that changes the perspective, right? So let's ask. We started out with 2 weeks to flatten the curve, and now we're 2 years later. Are we at a place where we need to figure out how to, looking at other jurisdictions in Europe, say Singapore and other places, how to live and work and exist with this thing now out and about? Or do we need to continue to sort of be buried in the closet and living in this space where, I don't even want to use the word a bubble, but so do we need to get to a place where we figure out how to live with this thing?
You see, Dwayne, first we not compare to other countries because the size of the country is very small. We have big amount of Caymanians. Let's be clear and speak frankly here.
Yes, sir. Please.
There's a lot of big number of elderly Caymanians in this country, and if we put those lives in danger by opening the country and everyone come and then do what he feel like to do, then we are putting a big number of people, of elderly people in this country in danger. We know this country,
right?
And everyone know that this country blessed from God Almighty because of those elderly people.
Amen.
Because they are godly people.
Amen. Yes, sir.
They are the one God protect this country because of them. Trust me, not because of us, the young ones.
No, man, no. They
are the all the evils the young ones do.
But so
God
let me then.
Us because the elderly people.
No, I agree with you.
To protect those people by listening to what the government. If you're not vaccinated, go vaccinated.
But then
all of these nonsense people demonstrating against vaccination, my friend, I don't know where these people bring that mentality. Maybe Trump is affecting them, that mental ill. Donald Trump starts affecting people.
Yeah, if I can ask you though, I mean, so therein lies the challenge, right? On one hand, we talk about democracies and people having a choice to do, with their bodies. I don't think that anybody should tell a woman, whether it's her choice, it's her body, right? Yet that's a debate that we see in many places from the seemingly religious perspective and otherwise. But then, what about the notion that you have, whether it's the Rome Accord just recently, or what that's called, the Barrington Declaration last year in October, to physicians, virologists, not just politicians and other pundits who do practice on patients on a daily basis, asking questions and maybe querying stuff, so that now that this is what is happening, can we move beyond that and try to find a way to come together again, and let us get to a space where we're working together, we're living and working and moving forward with this thing being what it is.
I mean, Dwayne, in the end, we need to see every citizen respect the country, government, obey the laws, obey the protection. If you are quarantined, stay in your quarantine. Don't allow nobody to visit you. We need to protect this country from this disease. The government and the government before succeed to keep us away for a long time, and we need to come back to that position by enforcing the laws. I'm urging the government to prison some people for breaking this quarantine. The second important thing, Dwayne, I need to speak about today, which is, the public transport.
Okay.
It's very important that we solve this problem. I've been talking about this public bus transport system from long time.
Right.
And here today, I want to show the two sides of the coin. Number one, some of the drivers, the one working from Georgetown, go by South Sound, those line of buses and go to Eastern District. They don't get much passengers, and they are not making money, and the government enforce them to go that route. And I think it is unfair for them to be counted with the people who are going in Crew Road, and they are getting a lot of passengers and they're making money, but they are breaking the laws by going to Bodentown and turning from Bodentown and coming back. So I'm urging the government to study that line, the South Sound line, which they need some financial help from the government to those bus drivers to be fair to them. They are losing money and they are not making money.
Right. Appreciate that sentiment, and let us not forget that Miss Susan rules with an iron fist, and she's back. Boy, and those breaks have to come. So we're going to pause and take that break, check the callers after, so stay tuned for Talk Today.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Ask our professional team about the benefits of cutting-edge technology with MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
We may be in Christmas shopping mode, but 'tis the flu season too. Savannah Pharmacy has immune system boosters for the entire family with a range of vitamins and supplements. Their knowledgeable and courteous pharmacists are always available to offer the best advice and products. Remember, they are always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
A friendly holiday reminder. You can WhatsApp your Savannah Pharmacy prescription to 929-5045. That's 929-5045.
I've got some beautiful clothes. I know just where they go. Good and cleaners.
From now on until October 30th, take advantage of our 12% discount on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays on all ladies and gents wearing apparels on orders $18 and up, except on wedding dresses and evening gowns, which will remain at the standard price at 10% off prepay. Offer valid at all 3 locations: Savannah Countryside, 946-1884, Elgin Avenue, 949-2452, and Eastern Avenue Drive-Thru, rain or shine, 949-7104. Puritan Cleaners, you feel good when you know you look good.
You can now register to receive a securely verified digital copy of your COVID-19 vaccination status with QR code through the MyHSA patient portal. Sign up is available at all HSA locations and at various sites throughout the community. To register, all you need is your photo ID showing date of birth and a valid email address. Visit hsa.ky and click My HSA Patient Portal for the sign-up schedule and more information.
As the community continues to take precautions from COVID-19, it is important to stay prepared for other disasters now that we're in the hurricane season. Here are some post-hurricane safety tips from the Department of Environmental Health. Cistern water designated for the purposes of drinking, cooking, and bathing must be disinfected before use after a hurricane. Simply leave the water for 1 minute after it begins to boil, or to disinfect with bleach, add 3 ounces of chlorine bleach to every 1,000 gallons of water. A residual bleach smell is an indicator that the water has been properly disinfected. For full guidance on post-hurricane safety tips, visit www.deh.gov.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. It is Some Open Line, and Susan answers the calls as you dial us on 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255, or you can WhatsApp 925-3261. Now, let's read this comment from one of our listeners. It says, good afternoon. Here's a suggestion to the government regarding the quarantine period. And maybe we'll speak to that in a second. It says, for those who want, quote unquote, want to come to Cayman, set the quarantine period to a 28-day interval. If you are vaccinated, you spend 14 days in quarantine. When that period is passed, you are then subjected to weekly PCR tests until you meet the 28-day period. Going off the basis that the incubation period is 20 days. Now, I did have a quick exchange with this person. I thought it was 14, but who knows, But continue the premise as put forward by our listener. So going off the basis that this is the incubation period, and that there were various cases where people have been tested and negative and then positive later on. Again, this would be for those who, capital letters, want to come here. And this should also be at the cost of the potential employer and not our government. On the flip side, I do agree that we should just accept this as the new common flu. It's being said that it has a 99% recovery rate if you're a healthy individual. Norway, Singapore, and other countries have done this. And this is the pilot says, thank you. I hope you have a blessed day. Well, to you as well. Now, here's the space that we're in. We're seeing increasingly, according to some media accounts, of physicians, the medical doctors who practice in daily with their patients, virologists, and others similar qualified, starting to publicly now say something. We also seemingly understand that it's alleged that many of those people feeling that here are some of the consequences that they have experienced, from threats to their career to attacks on their character, that good political thing, the character assassination, censorship sometimes of their scientific papers and their research, their whole issues, even their social media accounts being blocked, their online search results being manipulated. And these are things that have been alleged by many. Their sort of clinical trials, their patient observations being banned, even sometimes their professional history and their accomplishments being minimized, not just by the mainstream media, part of the attack on the person, but in their own sort of academic journals and the like. Now, if this is, as has been sort of shared, when we go back to last October, the Barrington Declaration, and it's something that some of you may say, well, you said it early on, and some people thought, well, you're being facetious. No, I think it's important. Words have strong connotations and impact. And so words like quarantine and the like shouldn't be taken lightly. Words like lockdown seem to, some things that we read have caused us to maybe appreciate that history has shown us that such measures don't necessarily bode well for dealing with pandemics, but the negative consequence on people's health, their physical health as well as their mental health. We had just yesterday, a member of the studio panel shared that a seasoned professional shared, felt like she was going to pull her hair out for being confined, under house arrest within a space. People are compliant, as the caller just before the break shared. They're very, very, very cordial and civil, and trying to do as best as we can to follow the rules, to understand the rules, not not necessarily out of a threat and fear of punishment, whether it's a fine or imprisonment, but because we think it's the right thing to do. We want to protect each other. Many of us, without question, will, just out of habit, without even thinking, we practice great hygiene. We wash our hands before and after a meal or the bathroom, or, there are many of us that would not go and visit somebody if we thought we were coming out with something, or if there's a young child, we didn't. That is not the case in all instances, granted. But we also see that potentially some of the so-called, as termed breaches are probably people for whom they may not necessarily be as mentally focused as the rest of us, and they're challenged. But how do we respond to them? We imprison them, or do we help them to appreciate, what is it that we're trying to get them to do, and why? Let's go to the phones. Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thanks for calling.
Good afternoon to you, Sterling Green.
And to you, sir.
Very along with it.
Yes, sir.
All this opposition to the vaccine and so forth. All the ones of us, and there are many around still, thank God, can remember 50, 60 years ago and less than that, you took these vaccines and you didn't question it. Where is the information on this? Where is that on that? My God, if we had done these kind of things, we would be beat today. And we are here all healthy. 99% of people that didn't suffer nothing. They took these vaccines that you had to go travel from place to place. You had to have that little card and all that. Nowadays we said it was produced too quickly. My God, there's a great difference between now and 50, 60 years ago when the polio vaccine, 70 years ago or so, was developed, and other great vaccines since then that we have to take, children have to take, measles, mumps, and the different things. And the point is, we have equipment and we have more scientists focused on these things now than before. It was 2 or 3 people focused on one issue. Now we have hundreds, and we have equipment that can test things and get you results in a few hours. Before, it used to take weeks. So imagine how long one program would take, with weeks just to get one piece of. This is the great difference, and people have to realize this and stop utilizing those things. You have doctors now who jump on board, or lawyers who jump on board and say this is it, and that we shouldn't have been locked down and stuff like that. Now they're saying it. But if Mr. McLaughlin, the Premier, hadn't locked us down and hadn't done these things and people were dying, those same people would be willing to hang him. I can tell you that. This is a hypocrisy in the whole thing.
You are listening
to... Thank you very much. But let us just, try and go along with the government. Don't try and oppose them for opposition's sake, for every living thing. We will never find perfection here. You're not going to find it here. Please believe me, you're not going to find it here. We try to do the best we can. Support our government, support what they're doing. We can critique things without getting up and marching, demonstrating, shouting, and trying to say this one is right, this one is wrong. We've always been divisive. Come election times, it's divisive as heck here, and some people campaign forever between the elections and so forth. Let us just put these things aside. Let us go and take your vaccine and get it over with. 99% of people can't be wrong, Anyway, that's my take for the whole thing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you very much for that, too. And, maybe it's division that rules the day, so that creates greater profits. But maybe we can overcome. Let's pause and take that break. When we come back, more Talk Today.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice. Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
From Radio Cayman's newsroom, I'm Shanda Gallego with your latest news. Authorities are investigating at this hour a body found in the water Wednesday afternoon.
A body was recovered from the ocean, and we're in the process of trying to identify if this is in fact the missing gentleman. Further updates will follow once we can confirm that this is in fact the missing gentleman.
That's Coast Guard Commander Robert Scotland. Keep it locked to Radio Cayman as we follow this developing story. In international news, Russia has denied using energy as a political weapon amid surging prices across Europe that have sent gas bills in many households skyrocketing. Russia, one of Europe's biggest natural gas providers, has been accused of internationally withholding supplies. President Vladimir Putin said such claims were complete rubbish and politically motivated tittle-tattle. 9 months after the attack on the U.S. Capitol, Republicans in Congress are defending Donald Trump's role in January 6 in some of their strongest terms yet and signaling he'd have widespread backing from the party if he ran for president again in 2024. Republicans from across the conference, including some who are vulnerable in next year's midterms or have long been seen as part of the establishment wing of the party, are expressing little to no reservations about the prospect of Trump topping the ticket again, even as he continues to spread the same election lies that led a mob to storm their place of work. And FIFA president has floated the prospect that Israel might co-host the World Cup in 2030, that according to the Israeli Prime Minister. A statement from Israeli Prime Minister said the two men met Tuesday in Jerusalem, during which the soccer boss raised the idea that Israel would host the World Cup in 2030, together with other countries in the region led by the United Arab Emirates. Those are your latest headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom. I'm Shanda Gallego.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
89.9 Radio Cayman helps you to weather the storm during this hurricane season.
One of the most crucial elements of hurricane preparedness is storm awareness. During the season, it is of utmost importance to pay attention to the latest local weather forecasts, as hurricanes do not suddenly form or strike. There are various methods of advanced notification utilized to be the difference between a favorable outcome and disaster. Both television and radio serve as excellent mediums with up-to-the-minute storm path information in the wake of a hurricane. Another method of tracking a hurricane may be only arm's length away. Your smartphone or tablet can be your most valuable tool before, during, and after a storm, providing countless numbers of apps with crucial hurricane information. Many apps allow you to track storms with moving radar and satellite imagery, plus offer alerts, current conditions, forecasts, advisories, and even video.
This hurricane preparedness tip was brought to you by your community radio station, Radio Cayman 89.9 FM.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us. 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. Or you can WhatsApp 925-3261. Or you can call us toll free with the kind compliments of Flow at 1-800-534-8255. Toll free call, Flow pays for that bill, 949-8037. You pay for it, but it doesn't cost much. You remember way back when, unless you want to see me exchange, the calls were free-ish. You only pay the rental of the phone. That wasn't much those days. But now, even compared to what the costs were way back when for those of us who had family and friends overseas, that overseas call was expensive. Many of us had some significant phone bills back then, but now not so much. So let's continue to champion our technology. And 1-800-534-8255 or 949-8037. What's on your mind and what is it? Now, the caller earlier had shared about the whole issue relative to the, public transport. For whatever the motivation, I think it's important that we look at it. Let's go to the phones, though. Good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for calling.
Good afternoon, Wayne.
Good afternoon, Cap. How are you today, sir?
Not bad, thank you.
Okay. We're hearing you slightly, and we're used to hearing you a lot better. Okay. All right, she's going to fix that for you one quick second. Because this caller, like many, always has great things, but we always want to hear all of them. Is that better, sir? Okay, Mr. Campito? All right. And we were just saying about the technology, huh? All All right, 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. Some days are diamonds, they say, and some days are stone. I say, sometimes the hard times won't leave me alone. Well, that's the lyrics from a song that some of us might know. That's probably all of the lyrics that I remember. But the song is there. So is your day a diamond? Is there a diamond in the rough? All right. Or maybe it's just one of those days when you wish, you know what, you just stayed in bed and wish it was raining all day. Whether it was a book or something else warm that you want to curl to. Well, that is it, you know. The fact is that we roll the bed and open our eyes. We give thanks for what lies ahead. Cap, you there now, sir?
Yes, I was in the car. I was trying to turn off the Bluetooth, but I didn't get around to it in time.
Not a problem, sir. But thank you for being, you know, so gracious.
No problem. I wanted to add on to the previous caller's comment regarding the injection and other topical issues, the vaccine. We just, my wife and I both got our booster yesterday, or day before yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, so we're in for a penny, in for a pound. And we, we feel that is the best way that we can help the situation. And I hear, like everybody else, we hear all the comments, the positive, the negative, and the in-between.
Mm-hmm.
But let me say something. It's a sign of the times, like the previous caller alleged, that, we're finding protests against everything. And one of the issues that I wanted to mention to demonstrate that point is the recent announcement that the Foster's Group was intending to move that building in West Bay to allow for expansion of their business. Apparently, there is a petition circulating which has a significant number of signatures on it, and whilst I'm not surprised about that, I am surprised that people find that, that they have a strong feeling about the preservation of heritage when it comes to signing a petition or something. But you can't find a soul that will come out to help restore the heritage homestead that is right next door. That was deteriorating at a remarkable pace, and taxis were stopping and almost every day with cruise ship passengers to look at the building style of yesteryear, of the Cayman Islands, etc. But when it came to restoring, there were hardly anyone in sight or maintaining. And that is the hypocrisy, that I find with many people these days. They're quick to jump on the bandwagon, repeat information that they think is truthful or slanderous or makes the headlines, but when it comes to actually, be part of it and make an effort to keep things going and improve the situation, they're remarkably absent. And it is really disturbing. I think it's a sign of the times, and I'm regretting having to say these things.
Why is that, you think? Because this is actions speak louder than words, right? Why is it that we're not willing to demonstrate through our actions or resolve or commitment to something? Why do you think that is?
Well, let me say, you probably have observed the same thing prior to social media, electronic social media. When if you wanted to write a letter to the paper to comment on something, there were far fewer voices or far fewer comments were being sent or printed or handed in than now. Now you can pick up a telephone and you can make your verbal comment and just voice your opinion, which I personally don't find anything wrong with that, with the ability to voice your opinion. But if it is not based on anything other than hearsay and rumor, then there is something wrong with it.
Right.
Everyone in a democracy, it is important that people do voice their opinion, but it should be based on fact.
Right.
Because that is the obligation of a democracy, for a democracy to work. People, it brings benefits as well as it places obligations on the people that are practicing the democracy. And in all honesty, many times the comments you read and the comments you hear are utter rubbish, to be honest. They have no basis in fact and no basis in truth. But because it is quick and cheap and anybody can say something verbally, most people aren't even willing to mention their name,
Right.
and it's sign of the times.
Is it then that it's because it's relatively easier, more convenient now to make that online comment, that word social media or phrase, becoming to me almost a weird terminology, but that's another story for another time, right?
All right.
We know, as you shared, if you wanted to send something to the print media in the absence of the proliferation of talk shows, that was a bit of a restraint there as well, and some restrictions. But is it the convenience now that this thing provides, or is it that people can be anonymous? They can say what they want. They don't feel accountable because they don't see that there's a consequence, and then because of all that, they maybe feel that they can hide behind something, some platform that gives them a greater sense of being bold and brazen. Is that what it is?
Well, it's certainly a marked difference between the comments where the reader's name is attached to it automatically versus the forums where you can remain anonymous.
Right.
There is a significant difference in the vocabulary, and many people are much more feel much more emboldened to use crass language and to register their outrage,
Right.
how they are outraged about something, but in fact it's a fleeting thing.
Right.
An hour later they would be outraged about something else.
So sorry, thank you. Is that then a failure on a part of us as a society? Loosely, our education, as it were, the inability, the unwillingness, the lack of patience and respect and responsibility to say, okay, you know what, I don't necessarily like that thing. Let me respond to that thing. We're not talking about having to necessarily everybody be grammatically correct, but to have a level of responsibility with respect to our comments. Now, there's probably, as you share, a space for people to be anonymous, but just because you're anonymous, does that mean that you have to be irresponsible, to be vitriolic, to be so inflammatory that people don't really appreciate what is it you're trying to say because they can't get beyond the way it's being said?
Well, I would wager that the people that are using the exclamations and that verbiage, they don't realize how much they actually are damaging the message they're trying to convey.
Right.
Because people are turned off, or the focus is on the verbiage used rather than the message. And
right.
and I would, you asked that you started the question by saying, is it a failure of our education system? I think we call it that. In all honesty, we may call it that. But when you're talking about the education system of today versus bygone days, and in the case of Cayman, bygone days, I listen to the stories that are being told, but they are not much different from what I experienced when I went to school. Now, in my days, you had, if you did something wrong, if you did someone wrong, and the teacher or somebody found out, you were punished, and you were afraid to go home because you were going to get another punishment there.
Right, and this was, where you initially were sort of reared your formative years, and we can see the
Right.
same example in Cayman.
Right,
But
and that has changed. It is
Right.
flipped over now
Yeah.
to where the parent now goes to attack the teacher.
Yep.
If and of course the saying is, if you keep excusing the bad behavior of your children, you're going to end up having to hire a lawyer to defend your adult children.
Right.
Now,
I don't normally do this, but I'm glad that you attached the word system. I say the failure of our education, right? And I'm glad that you attached the word system to it, because collectively, isn't that a problem? We as people aren't sufficiently mindful of the need to be considerate and to perhaps be positioned to express our views, like you and so many callers have done. You shared your view. You've done it in a way that may have caused some people to really, really think long and hard about where we are and what we're doing. But what is it that separates people like you and others who have that level of courage to be able to do that, and others who would hide behind their mama frock tail at any cost?
well, yeah, I guess that's an age-old question, isn't it? They used to say, "What are you, a man or a mouse?" And we all are the product of our experiences in life.
Mm-hmm.
And for many of us, we may grow up timid and silent for whatever reason. Maybe in our home, that's how the adults are behaving. In other homes, you might have adults that are using profanities as a matter of course and shout and instead of reasonable discourse between family members, they revert to shouting and screaming and kicking and stuff like that. And if the young person is reared in a system like that, then that's the form of communication they're accustomed to. Now, in the last couple of years, we've been talking a lot about bullying. And that, of course, is not something that you're born with. I think that is something that people acquire. And for some people, that's the only defense they have, because intellectually they are incapable of achieving the same results. So there's a lot of issues that come together. But the education, and I'm not talking about just the formal education in school, but the education has changed so much with the advent of technology and television raising the children, etc.
Right. All right. Well, thank you very much, and I think that's the seminal point. The way we teach and learn, in fact, is changing and has changed significantly. Blessings to you, sir. Thank you so much for those thoughts.
All right. You have a good day.
You too, sir. Let's pause and take that short break. When we come back, more Talk Today.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette, brought to you by the Ministry of Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands.
Sometime before 1837, a Mr. William Ryan, a restless traveler from Dublin who had worked in New York, jumped ship in Colombia. He would then go to Jamaica, where he trekked by foot from Kingston to Montego Bay, and somehow found his way to Cayman Brac, where he married the lone daughter of Stephen Foster and Elizabeth Christian, a Miss Sarah Christian. The two had 4 sons and then moved to Roatan, Honduras. Following Ryan's passing, Sarah Ryan went to Belize and then moved her sons back to Cayman Brac and brought with her an impoverished carpenter named William Kirkconnell. The two would later bear a son named Watler Kirkconnell, who went on to establish one of the most prominent Bracker families. Information from this historical vignette was sourced from Founded Upon the Seas, A History of the Cayman Islands and Their People by Michael Creighton and the New History Committee.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette, brought to you by the Ministry of Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands.
Freedom, Cayman Brac. Freedom, Little Cayman. Soft breezes, blue waters, no traffic. Unwind and rejuvenate your mind, body, and soul. Sister Island Staycations, a taste of freedom. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
Savannah Pharmacy. Shop local and get a head start on your Christmas shopping. For ladies' handbags, clothes, shoes, fragrance, candles, and cosmetics with the newest Farmhouse Fresh line of skincare. For the gentlemen, clothes, shoes, fragrances, gift sets, and toys and games for the kids. Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they are always just around the corner with everything your family needs. And convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
A friendly holiday reminder. You can WhatsApp your Savannah Pharmacy prescription to 929-5045. That's 929-5045.
At Subway, we caramel a lot about our customers, so we decided to give you 2 treats in one with the new Caramel Apple Cookie. Enjoy cinnamon apples, caramel bits, and salted caramel crunch baked in, and topped with a drizzle of caramel-flavored icing. Gooey, crunchy, and yummy. Complete your Subway sandwich, pizza, or salad with the delicious Caramel Apple Cookie or any other cookie flavor and dessert, available for limited time at all Subway locations. Subway, eat fresh.
20 years.
Remember when Crew Road had no median and Linford Pearson was only 2 lanes?
We do.
When Dirty Reeds was down the street?
We do.
We have been there for the falls, the growth, and the rise. When your body and mind needed to change, Powerhouse Gym has been here. We've skated with you. Your first date, your daughter's first time on skates, your son's first strike. From football to squash, to karate and hockey, to bowling and concerts, and everything in between.
For 20 years.
So much has changed, some for the good and some not so much. Through it all, King Sports Center has been here for you, for Cayman.
King Sports Center, celebrating 20 years as Cayman's home for fitness, recreation, and relaxation.
Had a look at those investment options yet? Too busy. Look at today. Workout, breakfast, take the kids to school, back-to-back meetings, take Pepper to the vet, and she's apparently got allergies now, so... And that was all before 12. But you look relaxed. That's because my money's as busy as you.
With RF, you can access the best in local and international investments to keep your money busy, so you can spend more time focusing on you. Contact us at rfgroup.com to find out more. RF, money at work.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks so much for joining us. And before we get to our scheduled discussion in relation to Tropical Storm Grace's Farmers Assistance Project, let's just take this other call in the queue. Good afternoon. Welcome. Thank you for calling.
Yes, good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you doing?
Blessed and thankful. How about yourself?
Trying to be good.
Trying, well, that's a good start.
So, 2 callers ago, a gentleman indicated that in time past, we got the vaccine, never questioned it, and that because of the increase in knowledge, the vaccine could have been developed in a shorter period. And the gentleman was very much correct in both of those assumptions. But equally so, that the knowledge of the masses has increased significantly as well. And to take away that ability from the masses to question, to demonstrate, and the likes, I think is to take away one of the safety valve of society. I don't know if and I think you might be aware of Genesis, where God told Adam and Eve not to eat of the tree of knowledge.
Yeah, actually, I was there that day, Not just kidding. Hope God didn't strict me for that.
Yeah. But I would suggest now that the tree of knowledge is now the internet. And you look at any little child, 1 year old, 6 months, or whatever they like, going into one of the supermarkets in the prom, in a push cart or anything, they have a tablet in their hand.
Yeah. But now it's a good and evil, right?
Exposed to knowledge. Well, knowledge, whether it's good or evil, they're exposed to knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And thus the ability to question anybody when they come to them with anything. And that right to question whether it's a vaccine or another issue should always be maintained, because those in authority should always be open to questioning as a safety valve for the whole society.
Right. I think that this is where I always I enjoy Ronald Reagan, even as a movie star. I think the President Gorbachev, his ally, some would say his nemesis, but at the time, I think their banter was good. And Gorbachev, when he would meet Reagan would always say, trust but verify. And maybe that's the problem. We are not willing to verify. Maybe we're not even trusting anymore.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the gentleman was right. I took the vaccine as a child, and nobody questioned it. The government said that's the way to go, and everybody took it. But that's a different era.
But some of us did question it, though. Do you not think?
Well, it wasn't as widespread as it
in the absence
now.
of what we have now, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But Dwayne, what I'm thinking though, I'm wondering if there's anybody, is there any way or anybody have that ability to measure the psychological impact of this whole pandemic on society?
That's a good question, sir.
I've listened to BBC and well, that's before it's now often Radio Cayman in the night, and I don't know what's the reason for that.
We're trying to address that, yes.
But I always follow BBC at night because of you could know what's happening around the world.
True.
Within the hour.
Mm-hmm.
And they did a report one time on the psychological impact on Britons, and they found that they have increased rates of psychological issues. I'm wondering if there is, whether it's the World Health, and if that can trickle down, our HSA here can have some instrument or some way to measure what the psychological impact is, because there must be some impact, because let's look at it. If you hear there's a spread in, whether it's the school or on the island, you see this panic buying, you see a whole lot of reactions. Stress, level, I believe, is affected. And we just can't say shut down, but we have to be able to measure the impact, not just financial, but the human impact as to the effects on human behavior.
Yes.
And that I believe would assist us in making some of the decisions that we have to make.
And I think this is where your comments hopefully should resonate with many of us, that we look at the cause and not exclude the psychological impact. How many of us have either consciously tried to sort of confine ourselves just to see what it's like? How many of us have had to be confined because of travel and because of other things now, and how did that affect us? So
I would also further like to suggest, and I don't know how far this will get, but I would say nevertheless, I don't know, everybody understand the concept of the stoplight. You have green, you have amber, yellow, and then you have red. I believe if one were to adopt a coded system around the stoplight as to how we react to the COVID pandemic, I think it can go a long way in reducing the stress level, because one, everybody would know once somebody pulled the trigger, whether it's the Premier or the CMO, as to what code we're in, everybody would know how to behave. So for instance, if we're in code green, and let's say code green is 0 to 500 infections, let's say for a bigger number, 2,500 infections, everybody know how to react. The schools, the HSA, government, everybody in society know how to react to that specific code. And equally the same as it pertains to amber and red. Now those numbers, as you go from green to amber, the number of infection increases, and therefore these are the set of protocols. You go to red, whether it's shut down, stay in place, or what have you. But I believe if one were to adopt that coded system, and I know that the World Health have some levels of infection that put you at level 1, 2, or 3, or something like that. But that doesn't pertain to how you run your country.
Right.
And I think if you use the coded system, or using the stoplight as an example, it would inform the masses as to where we are and how to react at the same time.
And that's a suggestion worth considering. Thank you very much for that, and maybe we can invite you to call and share your thoughts with us, even in studio sometimes, sir. All right.
No problem.
All the best to you, all right?
Thank you.
Blessings, thanks. And with that, this is where the discussions go, and maybe on the heels of that, I'm glad that we can welcome to our studio these two fine gentlemen, the Deputy Director of the Department of Agriculture, Senior Head in the studio, not by the grey hair, but comes with the wisdom, Mr. Brian Critchlow. Good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. It's a pleasure to be here as always. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the Senior Policy Advisor in the Ministry for Agriculture, Mr. Demoy Nash. Mr. Critchlow, I think I'm glad that we introduced you first, because if you look to your left, what do you think, man? The cover with GQ? Probably be the man frame, But Demoy, good to see you again, man.
Glad to be here, sir.
All right. I'm always mindful, and I say this sometimes not sufficiently. My brother Dwight in particular has always been a champion for agriculture. Like our mother, he sticks down a metal broomstick on a concrete pavement and they probably would bear fruit. Some people just have that, but he's more than that. He's spoke of something that only in recent times we start to appreciate: food security. And here comes along what some have said was a hurricane, some have said was a tropical storm, but Mother Nature and weather can impact us in very significant ways, from the financial impact, but more importantly, as Mr. Otto Wattler has many times shared, we can't plant a dollar bill and eat that fruit of that tree if it even grows. But boy, an avocado or a good plum tree or some mangoes, Coraloo in particular for my favorite, couldn't go better. But where are we in relation to appreciating the cost to our health and well-being, our security? So I'm glad that we can talk about this, Farmers Assistance Project. Perhaps from the Minister's perspective, Mr. Demoy, maybe we invite you and your initial thoughts.
So after the Tropical Storm Grace struck in August of this year, the Department of Agriculture, they were tasked to carry out an initial assessment. And based on that assessment, the ministry basically went to the Parliament. They got approval of this grant program that was suggested based on the assessment. And we were granted, $3 million were approved for this grant scheme. So basically, grant scheme was is geared to assist all farmers that have suffered damage by the tropical storm, whether it's to their livestock, to their farm infrastructure, to their crops. The good thing is that most of what were affected were crops, and Mr. Critchlow can go in more details as to say what particular species were affected and the percentage of losses that were we suffered. So we believe that the amount that was approved is sufficient to at least provide a good support for the farmers to, conduct rehabilitation exercises and to stimulate them interest in terms of getting back on production, etc.
Mr. Brian, that perhaps showed two things: how vulnerable we can be to things that we may not think is that significant. A hurricane in Ivan versus a good nor'wester. One would say, the nor'wester won't be that bad, but it could be significantly destructive to cash crops as well as to the hobbyists. But the other thing too is that maybe we get an assessment of, look at the different things that we are growing, not just can grow, but we are growing, and maybe help us to be positioned going forward to expand the offering. But as Demoy was saying, what sort of impact have we had, and how was that assessment, and how reliable do you think we can put into that?
Well, I can say that Tropical Storm Grace was a unique in the level of damage that we've seen in the agricultural sector, particularly in this case in the horticulture sector, the tree crop sector, and in general crop production. Damage to the livestock sector was not very extensive, fortunately this time, but a majority of damage was suffered by our fruit tree farmers as well as our crop farmers. And some of it is a combination both of the expansion of the sector, as in terms of being a lot bigger than it was perhaps back in 2004, but also, as you said yourself, although Hurricane Ivan was a Category 4 and completely devastating, this Tropical Storm Grace did a tremendous amount of damage, and probably some of the most we've seen on the island in the intervening period between Hurricane Ivan and now. Our estimates put the damage in the fruit tree sector, tree crops, anywhere between 60 to 90% of the trees damaged or toppled. In the field crops, in bananas and plantains, the destruction was almost complete and total. And in terms of most of the other field crops, your peppers, your vegetables, the damage ranged depending on the location of the farm and the area, anywhere from maybe 50 to 70%. Some were lucky, 25%. But a lot of the other structures, as we get more technologically advanced and more invested in agriculture, then there's more shade houses. There are more structures like that, which are, of course, then susceptible to damage from the storms. So, of course, we've seen quite a bit of damage to shade house structures, loss of netting, loss of roofs, that sort of thing that we would experience.
Yeah. And I think what it speaks to is that, I mean, maybe, I don't know, maybe there's a magic wand, but you plant something, let's say, a mango tree. It's going to take a while before that's going to bear fruit, but it can be destroyed in a matter of minutes. So the rehabilitative approaches by some to put their trees back in order?
Oh, yes. I said, the assistance to the sector has been two-pronged. Mr. Nash touched on, and this is what we'll get to, is the financial assistance that is coming, that is being delivered now. The initial stages, since the immediately following the storm, the Department of Agriculture mobilized its teams and whatever resources we had available to assist the farmers. I'm very pleased to say it, and I must really congratulate the effort and the work that our teams put in place from the 21st, the Saturday following Tropical Storm Grace, because we spent the first 2 days saving our germplasm orchard, which is critical for producing replacement seedling, replacement fruit trees and grafting, etc. We started working with the farmers, and over the next 40 days, and I'm talking consecutive days, the staff was in the field for 39 days straight. They didn't work one Sunday because we pulled them in to rest. But they worked straight through 10-hour days, and during that period, they assisted some 65 farmers on 73 different farm locations, and they rehabilitated and reset, put back up close to 1,750 trees. Wow. That's nearly 25, in terms of normal spacing, that's nearly 25 acres of fruit trees. And we almost don't realize how many fruit trees there are on the island. Yeah. So this was a significant contribution to the sector. I mean, these teams were anywhere between 8 to 13. And I think I did a rough calculation. We're talking somewhere in the vicinity of 3,700 man-hours that was delivered at no charge to the farmer community, to the commercial farmers.
But to great benefit to the economy and to individual
It's critical
lives.
Because resetting the trees will, if you lose the tree completely, it is a significant period, as you said. Replanting a tree, you're looking at least 5 years to to production. If we can rehabilitate, reset a tree, we can get back in production within a year, maybe 2 years at maximum. So it significantly reduces the lost period to the farmer.
And as you were sharing, I recall immediately following many people. I hope I weren't disrespectful to some of these that I have the greatest respect for. I call them the hobbyists, but their yards are in almost every conceivable space. They've deliberately, very consciously put down some fruit-bearing tree. It provides shade, but it also provides sustenance. And for them, it's to the table as well as to complement the wallet. And at the end of the day, they're looking, and you can see the impact on them financially, but also psychologically. All these trees are now potential loss. So this assistance, I think, is for...
Well, this assistance, as I said, I do respect that, and we always encourage backyard production and encourage people to plant fruit trees and vegetables in their backyard. But resources are limited, and we have to focus our resources first and foremost on the commercial farmers. So these assistance were to commercial farmers who were registered as commercial farmers and non-commercial farmers. What we were able to do or could do for the backyard persons was provide technical advice. The department very quickly put out a brochure, and with the assistance of GIS and CIGTV, produced a video which is on YouTube, on their YouTube channel, explaining to homeowners and backyard gardeners how they could go about resetting their trees. But in terms of the actual manpower and physical assistance, as I said, you can see as I explained, we were out there for 39 days straight, and over 65 commercial farmers to address. We just did the resources don't avail themselves or ability to go into every homeowner and backyard to be able to assist them directly. So the focus has to be on the commercial farmers. That's where our initial emphasis. So for the backyard, technical advice was what we were able to give. at that stage.
Excellent. Well, 40 days and 40 nights, but 39 days. Oh, you were that close.
But it would have made 40 if I hadn't made the guys come in for a day and rest. But they did need one day at least.
Let me look at you, see if you had that biblical character to you. But it felt like either Herculean effort or certainly a biblical proportion. Huh? Mm-hmm. But I want to try to adjust somewhat. But I think this is where we see the increasing, push by the Department of Agriculture over the years to encourage people to more and more. And maybe the more in those early days of farmers just, loosely putting that, hey, how do we get back rolling? Because this was a significant investment of time and for many of resources, and for a few, just from a casual observation, conscious to say, you know what, this tree, beautiful as it is, but I'm going to take this out and plant it with this other tree. This is ornamental and nice flowering, but it's not going to give me anything. But this coconut tree, this mango tree, in time, and we've seen that, but not without some impact. So where are we in relation to it? Because I think that there are certain criteria to be satisfied for those commercial farmers. There is, like anything, a processing period, a deadline. How do we go about this?
So the ministry has tried to make the process as simple as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, all commercial farmers who have been affected can apply. The applications are made to the Department of Agriculture. They collect the application, they key the application, and they carry out an assessment. So based on so if you should take a look at the application form, it has 3 parts. Part A, Part B is basically to capture the farmer's information. Part A being the personal information. Part B will describe the damage. And it's important for them to describe the damage in detail as possible. And this will assist the DOA in their assessment. So the DOA agronomy or extension team goes out and they carry an assessment based on the application and to verify, what's there. And the department makes a recommendation as to the amount that the grant should be approved for.
Mm-hmm.
That comes to the ministry, and based on the assessment, the ministry makes an approval, and the farmer gets that benefit in the form of a check.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are supporting documents that the farmer must provide.
Mm-hmm.
And these farmers, Mr. Critchlow can assist me with saying exactly what. I know they need to provide a government-issued ID card. Mm-hmm. This is a picture photo to say that they are actually who they say they are. And to prove that they are registered as a commercial farmer. So their farmer's ID is required. But also there's a database that we have to say who are the known commercial farmers. Right. But we're aware that their persons might be out of this framework. So once they apply, they'll also be verified. Other than that, they send the application to the department via an email address that is set up solely for the purpose of this project. That is tsgfap@gov.ky, and it should be addressed to the TSGFAP committee, which is a Tropical Storm Grace Farmer Assistance Project Committee, and the department will process those applications.
All right. So when we come back from this quick break, let's continue the discussion, Mr. Critchlow and Amori. So stay tuned. For Talk Today, we'll come back and talk about the Tropical Storm Grace's Farmers Assistance Project.
Wouldn't it have been grand if you had purchased land 30 years ago? It may not be 2020, but a perfect vision has never been more clear. Caymanbrac and Little Cayman, poised for growth with an eye on the future. Your land, your history, your future. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
The 9th Annual Cayman Islands District Wesleyan Youth Convention is from October 20th to the 24th at Craddock Ebank Civic Center in Northside. This year's theme is On Course with God, # Living My Best Life.
Living My Best Life.
Featuring Naomi Jonathy, Caitlin Bush, Donnie McCoy, Pastor Dolman Bodden, Donna Mitchell, Brian Watler Jr., and much, much more.
Nightly services begin at 7:30 p.m. and from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturday the 23rd. But Classes are available island-wide and all services will be streamed live on the Northside Wesleyan Holiness Church Facebook page.
Call Cassandra Ebanks on 925-1930 or Pastor Conway King on 916-5372 for further information. The first 25 persons to sign up will receive a free conference t-shirt compliments of Ollie.
You see how hard it's raining?
Yeah, and I don't have time to fight traffic and get my lunch from Subway. I have so much work to do.
Why don't you order Subway by using the Let's Eat or Bento app? Save time, stay dry, and get your sandwich fast.
I never thought of that. Great idea. I'm going to order now.
Order me a veggie pizza while you're at it.
And a cookie platter for the office. Too busy at work or home? Is the rainy weather stopping you from dining out? Order your favorite Subway sandwich, wrap, or pizza through the Let's Eat or Bento app with fast and reliable delivery. Subway, eat fresh.
We think it's time you crossed over to a new vehicle. And with the 2021 Toyota Corolla Cross now at Vant Motors, you have plenty of reasons to make the switch. The crossover body and hybrid engine is a sleek design in a sturdy structure with a spacious interior that opens to extensive cargo space. Stuck in traffic? The high-performance self-charging hybrid system automatically switches between gas and electric vehicle mode, helping you lower both fuel costs and carbon emissions. The Corolla Cross has full LED lighting inside and out, an integrated display audio system with energy monitor, and a dual-zone climate control system to ensure comfort for all. Test drive the new 2021 Toyota Corolla Cross Hybrid today at Vant Motors, Walkers Road.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Ask our professional team about the benefits of cutting-edge technology with MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
Explore your history. Explore your land. Explore your sister islands. The ultimate staycation experience. Your culture, your freedom. The land that time forgot isn't gone. It's your sister islands.
Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
COVID-19 vaccines are the only way forward in reopening our borders safely. Take the COVID-19 vaccine to protect yourself and the ones you love, especially those of us who cannot get vaccinated. For more information on the COVID-19 vaccine, visit www.gov.ky/coronavirus.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
As we continue our discussion, just a quick preview right after the headline news at 2. Mr. Locklear Banks, together with Andrew McLaughlin, will join us for another discussion. Looking forward to that. But now, Brian Crislow, the Deputy Director of the Department of Agriculture in Des Moines, Nash, the Senior Policy Advisor in the Agriculture Ministry. Like I said, the Tropical Storm Grace's Farmers Assistance Project. How did Des Moines say that? The TSGFAP. I just said... give you the email, tsgfap@gov.ky if you want information. But as we go into the break, we want people to, registered commercial farmers, to take this opportunity for the assistance being offered to the government. Help us to rebuild the resilience, get the farmers to be so discouraged, if they lost a lot or all.
Oh, certainly, yes. And the financial assistance, as I mentioned, a lot of assistance given directly up front, immediate. Now, the financial assistance is to help the farmers bridge this period of losses, because if you've lost income from damage to your crops, or, your whether it's your fruit trees or your bananas or your short-term crops, you still have expenses, you still have bills, you still have to replant. So the intention is to provide assistance to carry the farmers over this period. And as Des Moines mentioned on the forum, it addresses basically 3 key areas, is to identify if you you've had any damage to your infrastructure, to your structures, and to provide an estimate. This is very important, an estimate of what your repair costs are. For your field crops, meaning your bananas, your vegetables, that sort of thing, to give us an indication as to the quantity that was damaged in terms of either acreage or number of holes or number of plants or mats, as well as some indication as how extensive the damage was, and your yields. On the fruit trees, again, how many fruit trees you had and how many were damaged, and again, either an age of the tree or an estimate of the yields of the tree, and if there's any livestock losses, and there were some, an indication of livestock losses. Our officers go and verify that the information is correct, roughly, by seeing the damage or, physically inspecting. We're not going to go out there and tell you that you said this greenhouse cost X dollars to repair. No, if you said it cost X dollars to repair, then we accept the estimate that you've provided in terms of your losses. We just go out there to verify, yes, there was a greenhouse there, yes, the greenhouse is damaged. Yes, you had X number of trees and so many are damaged. We then take this information and apply it into a set of formulas that have been agreed with the ministry to estimate what would come up. So, for instance, in the tree crop case, you're looking at what the percentage loss was this year for fruit blown off the tree, and we calculate what that loss was based on the number of trees and what stage the crop was at. For instance, like the mango crop was almost finished, maybe 25% left, but the avocado crop was the other way around. The majority of that was still on the tree. And then for the next year, we look at then what the revenue would have been next year, and we use all this to calculate what the estimated loss are, and then we work it out and provide the ministry. Now, there is a cap on the payment, and I think ministry will point that out. The cap will, to a certain extent, depend exactly on number of applications and the size, but of course you want to make sure that as many farmers are covered as possible. So you don't want to be writing a check to one farmer for a huge amount of money and then realize that 10 of the farmers can't get paid. So of course there's a maximum cap. So whatever we calculate, if it's above the cap, then it sticks at the cap. And
what is that maximum cap, Mr. Ryan?
As I said, it hasn't been finally decided yet. The ministry does have a number, and I don't really want to commit to it because they said it will depend to a certain extent on the volume of applications. Because remember, there's a budgeted, as Mr. Nash said, a figure was approved in Parliament. We can't exceed that figure.
3 million.
3 million was approved, so we can't exceed that figure. So the cap may vary depending on what the final numbers are like.
How many registered commercial farmers?
We have over 420 registered commercial farmers, 430 between here and Cayman Brac. But of course, a large proportion of that would be livestock farmers. We had estimated that roughly in terms of fruit trees, there may be as many as 100. There's probably about 120 who would have sufficient fruit trees to qualify for registration with fruit trees. Which is like a half-acre fruit trees. The equivalents of a half-acre fruit trees or more to be classified.
Well, I think this, Demoy and Mr. Bryan, this shows the country's growing commitment and investment in agriculture, not just by government, but the people realizing the importance of eating what we grow and growing what we eat. So the deadline now for this is when? So when do people have they should know that they qualify, presumably, but when do they have to send it in?
So we're looking at October 15th.
Which is Friday, huh?
Which is Friday. So October 15th, all those applications should come in. We have started to approve applications early. So I want to say that the work that DOA is putting is tremendous. They have been sending recommendations for approval already. We have been approving applications as we speak. And just want to say one of the key broad outcomes of government is achieved with this project, which is to bolster food security efforts. And I also want to say that once the application is made, it takes about 7 to 10 working days for the assessment to be carried out. Thereafter, once the ministry receives that, we will move with expeditiously to ensure that they get the check as soon as it's possible.
So is this intended to be just a one-off initial check as opposed to a continuous stipend over a period of time?
What the ministry is looking at, as Mr. Critchlow speaks of a cap, we're looking at about $20,000 per farmer. If the amount exceeds $10,000, we're looking at paying in 2 tranches, but if below, a single tranche.
Right, okay. And then we recognize 39 days, almost 4,000 hours over that time, Mr. Bryan. So where it was certainly very prudent and very proactive for the DOA to go out and assist. Where that work has already been completed, many of these farmers are benefiting, a month plus in. How does that impact the assessment and the application?
That isn't really part of the assessment. In the sense, it does give us a head start because we've worked on a lot of the farms already, so we already know the extent of the damage. We know the number of trees that are down. So some of the applications, the verification and assessment process is very, very quick because we've been working on these farms before. And I said the farmers benefited from this at no cost to the farmers.
Right.
Of course, that has budgetary implications for the department because of this push us over our budget in terms of a lot of things. I mean, even at one point, I was concerned we were not going to be able to keep up with it because we bought out every piece of rope we could find on the island from every hardware store and every boat and supply store, and we're waiting for more to come in. But fortunately, we had enough. And we haven't finished. We've had to stop because of some other logistical issues temporarily. But the next phase now that we've reset the trees and pruned them is to start assisting the farmers with removal of the cut debris, chipping and shredding that debris so they can get it back as mulch for their farms. So that phase of the program is now starting again. So we'll be back in the field again, working with the same tree crop farmers, moving into phase 2, which is, as I said, removing the pruned debris, because we moved as fast as we could, and we limited it to 1 day per farm wherever possible to ensure that we covered as many farms as you can see, and we managed to get through in that period of time 65 different farms at 73 locations. So the teams worked very well.
Well, I'm hopeful that this level of commitment would encourage not just the farmers to, continue with the efforts, because it's not an easy task, but it will encourage more of us to recognize the importance of it, but to realize too that the country's investment through government's assistance, technical and financial, may propel more of us to dedicate some of our properties and some of our time to farming. Yeah,
I must say the ministry and the minister and the government is very invested in supporting the Department of Agriculture and supporting the farming in the sector. As you can see from this commitment in terms of the tropical storm, Grace, but also there's the ongoing assistance that's been given to commercial farmers. Since COVID, there was an initial batch of assistance through voucher program for both commercial and backyard farmers to assist them to purchase inputs from the Department of Agriculture at no cost. They were given a stipend every month, and that was restarted again for commercial farmers to run in October, November, and December. So in addition to the tropical storm, Grace, the commercial farmers have the ability to apply and receive a voucher for $500 a month to purchase inputs from the Department of Agriculture. So these are both two areas that are being used right now to assist the farmers to both get back on their feet and also to expand and continue their production. Yes.
Very commendable. The more I will ask, as we close the discussion, any salient points you want to reiterate, anything else you want to share with us?
I just want to echo what Mr. Critchlow said in regards to our Honourable Minister, Jay Banks, that is committed to the growth of agriculture in the island and to bolster the country's food security efforts. And with that said, the work that is being done, it's evident in having these 2 grant programs that are running simultaneously, and to really improve the resilience and success of our farmers. So it's tremendous work, and as a ministry, we want to say that we're committed to the growth of the sector, and through our department, the work doesn't stop. We'll continue.
All right. Well, Friday is the deadline for the farmers to make their assistance. Their request for assistance known, right? So, Brian?
That's the deadline at the moment, yes. Friday.
Right. Well, the invitation I was here to talk about farming and encourage us to not just eat what we grow to eat, but to appreciate that, through the agronomists and the, others, we can invest heavily in our farming sector. So thank you both very much.
Well, thank you very much, Darren, for having us on. It's always a pleasure to be here.
All right, well, thank you. You too as well. Thank you both for coming across from your desk and sharing with us. So to the farmers out there, the assistance is to hand. And it's not a patriotism, but our gratitude is for your continued perseverance. We'll pause now and take a break, and when we come back, Mr. Loxton Banks will come into the studio and share some thoughts with us. Very important subject, so join us after the break.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
Your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
From Radio Cayman's newsroom, I'm Shanda Gallego with your latest headlines. Authorities are still in the process of determining the identity of a body found in the water this afternoon.
A body was recovered from the ocean, and we are in the process of trying to identify if this is in fact the missing gentleman. Further updates will follow once we can confirm that this is in fact the missing gentleman.
That's Cayman Islands Coast Guard Commander Robert Scotland. Keep it locked to Radio Cayman as we follow this developing story. Turning to international news now. U.S. President Joe Biden will deliver remarks soon about his administration's plans to address global transportation bottlenecks. The president met earlier today with senior officials and stakeholders to discuss how to collectively tackle the issues. Port operators, truckers associations, labor unions, and executives from Walmart, FedEx, UPS, and Target attended the talks. The White House will work with companies and ports on a 90-day sprint to alleviate bottlenecks, according to a senior administration official. Meanwhile, the U.S. will reopen its land borders to non-essential travel next month, ending a 19-month freeze due to the COVID-19 pandemic as the country moves to require all international visitors to be vaccinated against the coronavirus. Vehicle, rail, and ferry travel between the U.S. and Canada and Mexico has been largely restricted to essential travel, such as trade, since the earliest days of the pandemic. The new rules, to be announced Wednesday, will allow fully vaccinated foreign nationals to enter the U.S. regardless of the reason for travel, starting in early November, when a similar easing of restrictions is set to kick in for air travel into the country. Those are your latest headlines here on Radio Cayman. I'm Shanda Gallego.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Hi. It's time again for another Siwa Saying. This time is a pretty somber topic. We have a seafaring heritage, and one of the parts of that is the tragedies that take place out on the sea. I always say the sea always wins. So the topic we're going to be focusing on this time is the Majestic.
The Majestic.
27 souls were on board. It was a great tragedy for Grand Cayman and something that everybody should know about and should remember. We're asking the listeners to help us out with this. We have a list of the people lost on it, but we don't have all of the names of the survivors. There were 27 people lost and 19 people survived. We would love the audience to help us out with the names and then the stories behind it. So please listen in and give us a call.
The Majestic.
Special feature of Talk Today with contributions from the National Museum, a language, history, and culture show on Radio Cayman 89.9 and 93.9 FM.
The Majestic.
Boy, we sound like you want to hear Romanas this time. Everybody, tune in. You want to hear Race Rat?
Join us this Friday, Siwa Saying, October the 15th, The Majestic.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thank you so much for joining us. And I'm always honored to be able to sit in the company of Mr. Loxlow Banks, and especially when he brings around others like Mr. Andrew McLaughlin. I think it reminds us of how important it is for us to never take for granted where we are, how human history has evolved, and the roles we have to play. So, Mr. Lox, I think Andrew and myself would say to you and Mr. Paul and all the others, a big special thanks, not just for what you've done in the past, but what you continue to do now to remind us that, as I say, some gave all, all gave some.
Well, sometimes I have to really stop and kind of gather my thoughts when I hear all this battering back and forth on the social media and all this stuff, but freedom of choice and this and that and this and that. Yeah. And, I go back, I say, Andrew Henning down in the trenches of World War II didn't have much choice.
Yep. Yeah.
But he was doing what was best for the greater good of the world.
The world
at the time. Yeah. Denton Henning didn't do the same thing. Did the same thing. Andrew, myself.
Yeah. Well, as you shared, even as recently as today, we have still many Caymanians who are in uniform services, and I say this with the greatest of respect, as I know it, on the front lines of what could quickly, Mr. McLaughlin, be a next skirmish in some far-off land. In the words of the Third World song, in places we don't even, you can't even say their names.
Yes, sir.
And for me, I'm like Mr. Locks, I'm mindful of it, but I look at it from the perspective that because of that sacrifice, I can't take for granted that freedom. I need to be responsible and respectful in my commentary, but I can't take for granted that freedom is going to be taken by some political despot, some profiteer in some company because it's good for business, or for some zealot somewhere in a corner with a pen or a keypad wanting to make some, unfounded comment. But that freedom needs to be championed, needs to be responsible, needs to be preserved. And with your presence today, I think we can appreciate the significance. So, Mr. McLaughlin?
Yep. I thank you again for having me on the show. Always enjoy it, Mr. Sterling. But anyone who's following any part of the world news would know that there's so many possible powder kegs all over the place that could just go anytime. And freedom is something that we have to protect from generation to generation. It's not something given to us, it's earned. And we have to make sure we continue to protect that freedom. When you see places like Australia, we haven't talked about Australia for a long time, but all of a sudden there's a conglomeration of world powers getting together to do things in Australia, because Australia has always been the launch point for China. So all these things are going on around us. You can't just stick your head in the sand and pretend that it'll never affect us.
Is this where, when I look at maybe a couple of things, the first, the subject of economics, people think it's about money, but it's more about society in a sense. And we talk about the geopolitical landscape. I wonder to what extent the media, loose to say, is cognizant of its rights and responsibilities, that role it plays in ensuring that we are reminded of history and the sacrifice. Some of us probably were forced to recite the poem of Flanders Field, Mr. Loxter, but really never appreciate that sea of red wasn't just the poppies.
Yeah, and more, I think the media is beginning to come into question as to their, you want to call it sincerity?
Their credibility?
Yes.
I'm glad you said it, sir, because I say the same thing.
Well, yeah. But I wouldn't say go as far as to say that it's more embedded now. I think it was always embedded, but it never really came up to where the general public could view it and see it.
Yeah. I mean, we look at a couple of things, and we have to question, words like propaganda and indoctrination, conditioning, and the like. And without it being just an academic discussion, are we asking ourselves what roles are we playing, or whether we're the highly elected political office that we hold, whether it's that appointed position on some voluntary basis, whether we are, the teachers in our classrooms, the parents in our homes, that coach, and the comment, just in passing,
a term that you don't hear much of anymore, but brainwash. And that was a household word.
Yep.
40 years ago.
We grew up with that, huh?
Yeah, man. But the Poppy Appeal is coming up, and that is part of the Cayman Islands Veterans Association program in trying to be able to provide for our veterans who we have veterans in need here on Cayman. Maybe Andrew can slip over to that.
Yeah, it allows us. It's one of our 2 fundraising functions, and unfortunately, again this year, due to constraints from COVID and regulations, we're not able to hold the Veterans Gala. So more emphasis is placed on the Poppy Appeal. And I just wonder if when people see that red poppy, like you said about Flanders Field, if they realize what it took to gain the freedom. Because I believe, rather than the news, the movies have done a better job. Movies like Saving Private Ryan. If you actually, today, we could not believe modern warfare is nothing like the brutality that they went through in World Wars I and II. All you have to do is watch that for a short time, and you can see what these brave people went through. And some of them are still amongst us.
Yep.
And it's our duty to take care of those veterans.
I mean, we think back to Desert Storm. Those of us that may have had family somewhere in the Middle East, not even knowing where they were or if they were okay, and no way of knowing. And to tune in, because it was primetime viewing. The original, to me, a reality show. There's, Bernard Shaw and my good friend Peter Arnett and the others. Just, Wolf Blitzer was just cutting his teeth, as it were. And we were watching this thing, to be fast forward to reports of Stuxnet or whatever it is, the type of warfare, it's become such a casual thing that we don't see the impact on the lives of those who are trained. Anyway.
I just today watching, I don't know whether you saw it, Andrew, you probably didn't see it, but the spacecraft.
Oh, yeah.
And William Shatner.
Amazing.
And Jeff Bezos or Bozo or whatever his name is. The two of them in
Bezos the Bozo?
Conversation. And it really told you something about humanity, because both of them actually teared up in their conversation.
But go back to it's hard. I mean, it was our 20th of January. That fateful year way back when. We were watching Challenger, and all of a sudden this thing happens. That's very real, and we weren't that far away from launch pad. And people don't understand the cost and the commitment that people have out of love of country, and to be pushed and brainwashed, if I can borrow your word, from 4 decades ago, Mr. Loxley. We thought it was the axis of evil because of the communism approach, but we wondered to what extent democracy has been undermined because of, some other thing, maybe inadvertently, and not being respectful for this valor that you've exhibited, this reminder to us to be respectful and responsible.
But and you come back, and again you come back to humanity, be responsible. Throughout history, at least what I'm aware of, are differences. And talking about the big picture now, I've always thought that it could be settled by war, and it's never been settled by war. I mean, and you think back to General MacArthur's and Churchill's view after World War II, and Churchill was after World War II when he said, Russia, we can take them out immediately. Let's go. No, we can't do that. MacArthur in Korea, let me go into Manchuria to clean this thing up now.
Same thing, Schwarzkopf.
Yeah.
Desert Storm.
I came probably within maybe 7 feet of Schwarzkopf, probably closer than that. And this man was the size of a Humvee, and
big guy,
right? And his aide, I guess, was walking with him, and he reminded me, if you took Shaquille O'Neal and Fridge from the Bears, and taped them together with duct tape, this guy was bigger than the two of them, and he made Schwarzkopf look almost small. And as they walked by me, right, it was like a win, but such humility, such a compassionate face, all the same, as they move by. And it reminded me how we've changed. To me, that was one of the best encounters ever, But where are we? Susan tells us we have a call to join us as we get into our discussion with Mr. Loxley.
Excellent.
Let's see where we are. And we're talking to Mr. Loxley, and we're talking to Mr. Andrew McLaughlin. Hey, good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, good afternoon, gentlemen. How are you all today?
Blessed.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Loxley, it's good to hear you down in our history. History is good, Very good. I enjoy listening to you all the time. You bring back the old memories, even from Cracker Jim days. But you remember him, right, Mr. Loxley?
Oh, yeah. I knew him quite well.
Yes, sir. I just want to ask you, gentlemen, a real quick question. I was listening on to something called the Experts Association today, where it's like Mr. Loxley can come down to your house down Westway and tell you what I want to do in your house. Just quick question. I know it's not on the subject, but could you just give me your opinion, and I'll hang up. In other words, it seems like the people, the expatriates that are even coming to work here, and they refuse to get vaccinated, but they want to tell us in our own home, in our own house, what to do. Do you agree with that? Is it fair? Can it be done in any other country?
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Well, we just made some references to freedom. There was many Caymanians down in the trenches of World War II who didn't have much choice but to fight for the better good. And I think that's what we all should be.
Yeah, that's it. And to that caller's point, I mean, this is perhaps where we should champion democracy. That people, no matter where they are, if they're living in a democracy, have a semblance of that corresponding right to speak are responsible, but to be able to speak, and even if it goes counter to government policy, they should be able to visibly demonstrate. We look back to the U.S., for instance, and there's Martin Luther King who's saying, listen, let's show our disapproval to this thing, but let's do it in this way.
The correct manner.
You know, so without a sense of being hostile. We got to find a break to take. When we come back, I always learn a lot. I always leave uplifted. So let's get into the discussion, and we invite you to please stay tuned for Talk Today.
I'll never forget.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab. Blood test, x-ray and mammogram, all of that is MedLab. Affordable fees and friendly service, a full professional team. MedLab is always comfortable, MedLab is always clean. For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Call 949-7331 and ask about MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
Choose informal times to talk to your child about alcohol. Having frequent talks with your child in a safe environment will show that you care and encourage a more open and honest dialogue about the risks of underage drinking. For tips, log on to www.ndc.ky. This message was brought to you by the National Drug Council and Radio Cayman.
We may be in Christmas shopping mode, but 'tis the flu season too. Savannah Pharmacy has immune system boosters for the entire family with a range of vitamins and supplements. Their knowledgeable and courteous pharmacists are always available to offer the best advice and products. Remember, they are always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
A friendly holiday reminder. You can WhatsApp your Savannah Pharmacy prescription to 929-5045. That's 929-5045.
The Department of Commerce and Investment is asking clients to use their online services at www.dci.gov.ky for trade and business amendments, grant and renewal applications, and more. While the DCI counters remain open from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, you can stay safe, avoid the line, and save time by applying online for business services at dci.gov.ky. For questions about the DCI's online service or other licensing, enforcement, or regulatory matters, please email info@dci.gov.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
And we're back here. And we're back here with Sterling Dean, of course, on Talk Today, and Andrew McLaughlin from the Cayman Islands Veterans Association. And we've got a 90-second cut coming up for you. And what we want to do here is try to establish, the synergies and the connections between the Caymanian seafarer. And since this is the year of the seafarer, the contribution that they made during wartime. And we'll connect those two things. If you listen closely, you'll hear this was I'm sure that the ship that he was on was most likely under Army Command. And he tells a story of being out in the Atlantic. And I'll let you listen to it. So, Susan, can we have that cut?
I'll never forget. This voyage was from Australia. It was in the South Atlantic, between Cape Town, South Africa, and Sierra Leone, North Africa. We saw this. It looked like a bird on the horizon, And shortly after that, the captain got a signal saying, "Stop and don't use your radio, or we'll blow you out of the water."
So this was a message from the Germans?
Yeah. That was the Admiral Scheer. And in no time at all, this ship was alongside of us, told us to take our boats and get off the ship and proceed to the Admiral Scheer. And as soon as we got aboard, they torpedoed our ship and it went down. And the Scheer took us aboard a supply ship, and we was on there for 3 weeks.
This is a German supply ship?
The German supply ship. We was there for 3 weeks, and then they took us to France. We spent 3 weeks in France, and from there to Germany.
And that's a short piece of historical narrative that we've collected over the years. Now, there were actually 4 Caymanians on that ship, and they were all taken prisoner of war in Germany. But it just kind of demonstrates the synergy, especially in Caymanian context, between the seafarer and I'm not sure that, after I'd say 1955-60, whether this would hold true to the highest level, but I think it did continue a little bit after that. The dangers of the Caymanian seafarer and the dangers of the Caymanian military or soldier, because as many as was out on the oceans during wartime in dangerous waters, there were that same many, maybe more, on the battlefields.
Yeah.
So this is the kind of synergy that, I don't hope, well, it's not being lost, but it has to be promoted more.
We're going to be remembered, sort of reminded of it. And as you shared that, Ms. Doctor, I'm thinking too that increasingly we are not appreciative that, as you said, many of the seafarers, their vessels, I'll use the word if this is not appropriate, sort of commandeered by the U.S. military in particular, or they were sort of being used in a way that would help to facilitate the war effort.
Well, there was a famous Cayman schooner, the Adams, that was confiscated by the U.S. Navy and turned into a minesweeper.
Yep.
And after the war, they brought her back here and reconverted her back to schooner rig, and she went turtling.
There you go. And there were many who, were in the Merchant Marine. Their flags were sort of one way, but the use of the vessel was another. Stories that may be lost many times, but Mr. McLaughlin.
And the U.S. military in particular recognized those seamen and gave them military benefits. They were considered veterans. They actually got official designation. Yeah. So where we're at today, though, is that we must take care of our veterans that gave us this freedom that we talk about and that we walk on every day. And more importantly, on behalf of the Cayman Islands and the Cayman Islands veterans, I have looked at some of them before they went on to their final post, and we assure them at the Veterans Association that they will not be forgotten, nor will their loved one that they leave behind, their spouse. So even after the veteran is gone, we still continue the small benefits we have to provide for their spouse. Some of them are bedridden, can't get out of bed, they need extra help, but we try to do everything we can for them. That is our pledge to all veterans.
Lest we forget. So with the Poppy appeal, we know November comes and there is a wonderful gesture of respect on that holiday Monday. But for some of us, it's lost in translation. We don't see it. So it's Doc to help us to appreciate the importance of sort of the preview of today's discussion.
Well, the poppy appeal will get started actually on Friday when we pin the governor with the first poppy, and it'll go through the middle of November, and there will be representation.
Poppy and the premier. The governor and the premier.
Governor
they both get a first
and
poppy.
the premier. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And through the middle of November, and throughout that period, there will be Cayman Islands Veterans Association representation or representatives at many of the outlets, mainly the big grocery stores during that period. We've got a schedule, but I'm not sure that with our limited crew whether we'll be able to fulfill it all. But you'll probably see us out there somewhere trying to get gather funds that we can support the Cayman Islands veteran who need help. And of course,
but as I listen to you, I don't think that enough of us appreciate. When maybe the younger ones, and I would say those of us under 40 or the even 50 sometimes, that when we hear about World War I and II, or even there's a storm, they're like, huh? What was that? Or they even look at the world news, partly because of the way the news now is being skewed, and I don't know. I have another word for it, but I'll leave that for now. This is an ongoing battle to ensure that people's lives, their ability to criticize publicly, are preserved, and our freedoms in the Western world now taken for granted, and we want to point fingers at this place that way, without realizing that there's a significant cost. And
don't have to look far. Just look in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
In a day, that country changed. In a matter of days, the country changed, and the people by the thousands still trying to get out of there because they know what's coming, and that's the loss of all freedoms, so to speak.
And we fail to appreciate that right here in Cayman, there are Caymanians who were there.
They answered the call.
Yeah. And some of us don't appreciate that, and we don't see the impact on them.
And anyone that puts on a uniform will tell you it's a calling. You don't do it because it's a job. The benefits aren't the best. It's a calling. It's something inside that says you must answer. You have something to give, and you're going to give it all.
You're talking about the benefits. When I went in, it was $69 a month.
But you look good in uniform, though. I mean, come on, the uniform made the man.
But what will surprise you is that the Veterans Association, the numbers go down all the time for obvious reasons. People go on to their last post, but we haven't got that surge from the young veterans, Caymanians that have returned, and we try to tackle that every year because we need them to understand that you're not alone. You have someone who cares and someone who has some limited resources. When you're in a pinch, you're not alone. Yeah. If you're a part of the Veterans Association, you're one of our brothers and sisters.
I'm wondering, and I'm mindful, and I trust that this is not at all insensitive, but I'm mindful if some of the younger ones probably feel that the community isn't appreciative, and that for them, they may be looked at in a way that isn't complimentary. I'm being very particular with my word choices. And so for now, maybe they still see themselves as young and believe that a veteran is someone who did this, or is that age. But I wonder if we as a community don't understand that there's been a significant negative impact on this person because of what they've seen, probably unable to, talk about, to process and to acknowledge, and maybe have found another outlet that isn't the most positive.
And that is very strange because I can tell you Canada has done the best from the world wars to integrate their military back into the society. But the United States not far. Employers know that when you come from the military, you're coming with a lot of experience and a lot of skills that you learn, not to mention maturity and leadership abilities.
Discipline.
So I hope that message gets out because the young veterans that I've talked to in the Cayman Islands are all doing well. They're valuable part of society. They make themselves a valuable part of society.
I think the Cayman Society, there may be a few little pockets here and there under some birch tree or coconut tree that thinks this way. But they're the ones that you have to really get the message across to, because they can multiply that if they're not given some good basic sound information on it.
Right. So we will be having an annual general meeting of the Veterans Association next Thursday, the 21st of October at 6 p.m. at the Wharf. And I implore anyone interested in assisting the veterans to come. We have 3 levels of membership: a veteran who served successfully and been released from their active duty. We also have a affiliate member, somebody whose mother, father, brother, sister was actually a veteran. And then we just have the third membership, which is a general membership for anyone who they may have not had anyone in their family serve, and they just want to be a part of assisting the veterans as they go through the rest of their life.
I think there are very few organizations that you can be attached to that would make you appreciative of who you are, what you are, and that ability that you have to say and share as you or as we have done so freely. And we need to make sure that's still maintained.
And add to that, and show appreciation for what the sacrifices and dedication that preceded all these freedoms that accompanied all these freedoms that we walk around in here every day. And
we told, huh? Yeah. That's the thing, man. That's the thing. That's probably what gives me more courage than anything else, to know that people like yourselves have done that so that I can enjoy what I do.
I would like to congratulate the Seafarers on their recognition this year. That is a step in the right direction.
Definitely.
Yeah. Again, they left their families and went all over the world to send things home, monies and things like that, to change our society. And of course, some of them even brought wives back to integrate into our society.
We won't say anything about that. We don't know what.
That's how you grow as a people.
Yeah, that's what's made us a resilient people with a great resolve. So, closing thoughts, Mr. Loxley.
Well, we just hope that everybody will do what they can to contribute to the Poppy Appeal, which gets started on Friday and runs through the middle of November. And I think as far as what's going to be going on the 11th of November or that weekend,
it would be the 14th would normally be the parade, but that's not confirmed as of yet what celebration we'll be doing Sunday.
But I'm sure that information will be out pretty soon until we can get with all the.
And please, everyone, we have new veteran armbands, we have stickers, we have placards for your window. Of course, we have the traditional poppy. Let's make Cayman red this year. Red with the poppies. And the remembrance of all the people who made that extreme sacrifice and all of those that were lucky enough to come back to us and bring their experience with them.
Let's show some love, makes the world go round. Thank you so much publicly again. Thank you, Mr. Loxley. Andrew, to you and all of the others. We're indebted to you.
Thank you. They can always get information at www.CaymanIslandsVeterans.org. www.CaymanIslandsVeterans.org. Thank you. Thanks for having us, Mr. Sterling.
Always a pleasure, sir.
Thanks.
All right, well, tomorrow we invite you to be a part of our discussion. Ms. Renata Keskis joins us. Dr. Darla Solomon will be in our studio. And then 1:30, there's a discussion that you want to be a part of. Talking about freedom and the right to petition, the right to promote, the right to champion certain things. Well, it's a topical subject that we've been approached with you.
It's on the counter all the time now. But just say to all those who champion that, think of the Caymanians that lodged down the foxholes. See the freedoms they had.
Freedom wasn't free.
Let freedom ring, they say, from the hills of Bosun Bay to the bluffs of Camelback.
All
over. Until tomorrow, my friends. Be blessed.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. MedLab in Smith Road Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution. Call 949-7331. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays.